Thanks for tuning in to the Fram Dynasty. Of course, I'm back with another R&B topic, and the most, I guess, discussed topic over the last week or so is this versus topic of Pretty Ricky versus B2K. Now, this matchup is set for June 25th, supposedly. I do think it's a disrespectful matchup for Pretty Ricky and their catalog. No disrespect to B2K, but I don't think they had enough hits or enough time or the years that Pretty Ricky has put in because Pretty Ricky, if you look it up, it formed actually in 1997. B2K was a late 20s group, but they had a long hiatus. Most of the years they really didn't get along. They really wasn't together. I know Pretty Ricky had a falling out with Pleasure P, but for the most part, they've been together and they've had um, a very successful career. I wouldn't say a long career because they had a little hiatus as well, but their hits compiled against B2K's, it's not even close. And if it goes to 20, which I'll talk about in a little bit, I don't think it'll be even, it really won't be close. Now, if you're going to five or something, maybe it'll be a little bit closer, but, or I mean, 10, if you're going to 10, it'll be a little bit closer, but 20, it'll just get too unfair for B2K because Pretty Ricky has really two albums that everybody knows and loves, and that's pretty much like a greatest hits compilation from those two group albums that they put out. But it's had so many hits on it. But I put Pretty Ricky up there with the Jodeci's and the TLC's. The TLC's because not because of the hits, but because the chemistry of the group. They have a bunch of rappers and one singer. And TLC had two singers and a rapper. So anytime you put rappers and singers together, I'm always thinking about a group like TLC that was influential for most people to do have that mix because back in the old days, you just had singers or, towards the 80s, you just had rappers in a group. You didn't mix them until TLC did that. So it was very unique to have that different skill set. But I do put Pretty Ricky way on a higher of a pedestal than I do a B2K. B2K was just seen as a boy group and it was seen as, singing ballads and love songs. Pretty Ricky was singing raw, uncut. It was hip hop fused with R&B. It was a conglomerate of all these things. It wasn't just one thing we're singing about. We're singing about everything. We're singing about love. We're singing about love making. We're singing about um, just the rigors of a relationship mostly. I mean, and B2K did talk about other things in relationships for the most part, but they didn't talk about it in the same way that Pretty Ricky talked about it because when Pretty Ricky talked about stuff, you couldn't really listen to this music like you could B2K. Now you can listen to B2K around your family members and respected elders and things like that. Pretty Ricky, you couldn't do that. That was one of those more type of things. Listening to it by yourself or with your significant other. So the content matter was a lot different as well, and you'll probably see that on the verses that Pretty Ricky's uncut. It's just raw music, no pun intended. It's just it's a different ball game when you're thinking about it because it's the difference between a Disney and pay-per-view, essentially. Because B2K was just that buttoned up. Um, and I think if Pretty Ricky was, they originated in like the early 90s and they had these same songs in the 90s, they would be even a bigger group than Jodeci, I believe, just because of their ability to make hit records, and a lot of that was off the back of Pleasure P, I believe, because him singing those hooks, um, mixed in with those verses that rapped, showed a lot of popularity for them, but it also showed a lot of versatility, and it also showed that they could just make hits. Because we saw when Pleasure P left the group, he had he had good success on that solo album that he had. He was Grammy nominated. He had a lot of songs on the radio at the time, which was a huge deal back when radio was still radio. It was towards the end of it, but radio was still radio. So he had like two or three songs on rotation from that album. and he just showed his worth and his value to the group because once he left the group and they started continued putting out projects, the music didn't sound the same. So Pleasure P was a lot of that group, similar to what Omarion meant to B2K. Because when he left, he had several albums and several songs that went high on the charts, and there was radio play that were actually people quoted. I know MIA, Omar, his old song was a huge hit record. He had songs like Touch. He also had uh, Supposed to Be, which a lot of people quoted for the grocery line that's in it. So Omarion had a very good solo career, such as I mean, Pleasure P. He only had one album, but I mean, the album was, it was stamped. But Omarion had a great discography without B2K, and he showed his huge value as well. And if we're talking about stars in this matchup, Omarion, of course, is the biggest star, but Pleasure P is the best singer that's out of these two groups. So you have interesting dynamics from both groups. But like I said before, I don't think this matchup is close, um, because I think B2K has about 4 songs, while Pretty Ricky can get easily into the 20s and 30s, if they were going to No Limits. Because I think B2K has songs like maybe Gots to Be and Why I Love You, Bump, 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 and then Girlfriend. That was about the 4 hits that they really had. I'm not familiar with their B-sides as much as I am with Pretty Ricky's, but we know what Pretty Ricky's discography is. I mean, Grind on Me, Juicy, Call Me, Age Ain't Nothing, well, Nothing But a Number, Your Body, Hotline, Late Night Special, Stay, Confused, and that's just a sample of those because I didn't wanna write all of those songs because it would've been like 30 songs that I actually like, and they're pretty much the king of the B-sides as far as R&B groups goes because a lot of those songs that didn't make the singles, as singles, I love those songs, especially on that second album, the Hotline album that they had. That album had so many great B-sides, and the singles were good too, but, the B-sides made everything because, of course, Pleasure P is on the hook singing, and then you have the rapping mixed with it, and they were very underrated rappers as well. Not lyrical, but they can get their point across and say words in a certain way that made sense and was more um, digestible for the listener. So, but I don't think B2K has 20 to sum this all up, um, unless they include Omarion's solo career stuff. If they include his solo career stuff, that means Pretty Ricky can include uh, Pleasure P solo stuff, and he has about 3 or 4 solo songs that can go as well. So it could get pretty interesting. But I think all in all, uh, Pretty Ricky wins this one easily around 17-3, and it might be the biggest route that we've seen in a versus just because it's so lopsided. But I understand the marketing behind it and the strategy behind it. B2K and Pretty Ricky both are on the Scream tour. They work together a lot, so I'm pretty sure they're competitive and they're friends, and they go back and forth, and they have this dual conversation of who can win in the verses. So Bow Wow pumped this matchup up, so I think it makes sense on the friend side and strategy side, especially if they're trying to go on tour and everybody's trying to get their numbers back up because we know Versus puts your numbers, it what do they call it? It pretty much magnifies your career and it multiplies your views and your streams. So I think they're trying to do that as well, which I'm pretty sure it will because B2K has some songs that people might have forgotten about and people will stream again after they watch this verses. And the same with Pretty Ricky, them being such an underrated group and them being, them having a shorter run, a lot of people forgot about them. So it'll get people to play their music again, have people maybe buying their music again. So it'll help them out tremendously. But yeah, I don't think this matchup is close. I got Pretty Ricky winning this 17-3. Tell me your thoughts about this matchup, and until next time, I'll see you next time.